This conference will now be recorded.
No matter how nice architecture you have, the house will crumble one day and fall apart if the building blocks are not safe and secure. And the meeting today is going to focus more on how we unit test and how we do it with a product called Cantata, rather than answering my initial question here. For those of you who are attending, you shall know that we will provide the slides and we will also provide a recording of this webinar. It will be public to access the recording later on. We're going to do a couple of slides and we're going to do a live presentation. And if you have questions, just write your questions in the chat window that you have on the right of your screen.
I can show you. Hold on. There's a chat window depending on if you're using the app or the web. You have a chat window in the side.
Right. Okay. Just a few words on what we mean with unit test and what is Cantata. Cantata is a tool for unit and integration testing, and it's used by many hundreds of companies, and we've been working with Cantata for over 20 years, so we know it's a solid product. It's used in the most high integrity and high safety organizations around the world. And today we will talk about what we mean with unit testing. Let me first explain what we mean with unit testing, because there are many interpretations of that.
Yeah.
When I ask my customers. So what we mean with unit testing is test initially the smallest modules of your software. May it be functions, may it be methods, classes, modules. And we test that these are solid building blocks before we start integrating them. And when we started integrating them, we can move on to the integration test. And that's about as far as we define unit testing here today. So where does it come in? Well, the first thing when you've done your code and checked in your code is to check whether the code is robust. Does the code work? Is it correctly programmed? Does it have any flaws in it? Well, of course, we compile it, make sure it goes through compilation, and then the mandatory thing is really to run source code analysis on the code. At Noah, we work mainly with a product called Code Sonar for serious analysis of your code. And when you assess that the code is robust, move on to check if the code does what it should do. The functional testing, and that's a dynamic testing. And we start with the smallest modules, the units, and we test them with Cantata. When we tested the individual modules, we can build larger test programs using Cantata for integration test. But we don't go further than that with Cantata. So if you want to move on to system test, you use other products like SexUp or MX Suite and many other test products. But the biggest problem with testing is really to know when to stop testing. When have I tested enough? And with Cantata, we can actually check how well we have tested our units.
Yeah.
And that we normally do. That's really hard to do. But the metrics we use is to see how much code has been jogged, how much code has been executed by our tests. And that's what we call the code coverage measurement. So have we tested all paths through our test or have we not? Cantata will document that and give you a report on that. So we will show you exactly how that's done a little bit later on.
Yeah.
One important thing is, of course, your quality assurance process. And many of our customers do have specific requirements for instance, functional safety regulations, security regulations, etc. So it's good to know that Cantata is a certified tool, and you can use it in the highest integrity environments, whether you do airborne applications, car application, medical device applications. There is all the documentation and all the test suites to prove that Cantata will work in your environment.
Do you get any help by?
Yeah, these are tricky things to do. To get not only the tools qualified and certified for your own process, it's a tricky thing, and we will of course help our customers to achieve their goals in that respect as well.
Yeah, exactly. And there are documentation with this tool that will help you and guide you fulfill the requirements
exactly
on the certain different skill levels.
Yeah, that comes in very helpful. Saves you enormous amount of work. Okay, of course, no single tool is working on its own.
Correct.
Today, it's so important that the tools can integrate with other tools and it can work in your CI or DevOps environment. Maybe you would like to say a few words on that, Martin.
Yeah, of course. The tool is built up with Eclipse, and there is Eclipse plugins for you that use other IDE or tool chains. And of course, you can use it with any of the compilers available on the market today, and integrate it together with other software development lifecycle tools. And if you have a great debugger like Lauterbach or something else, it's easier to get the unit tests running on your target. So it's a really helpful tool that you can control in the way that you want to through either batch scripts or command line scripts or what you need, more or less. To move a bit further, just to show you a bit how the overview, how the general test execution is working, we have the software and test, our source code that we have the units in that we want to test, and we want to exercise those. And if you have code coverage requirements or something else you need to instrument, you will get a copy of that source code. And together with the libraries from Cantata and the test scripts that you create, you get an executable, and that executable you will run on your host or target or where you want to run it. And of course, all of this you can do from the IDE or the build environment that you are using.
So you're saying that I can actually run my test on my target as well?
Yeah, exactly.
So, and get reports from that?
Yes, you get reports also in different ways, of course.
Okay.
So there is a lot of different output you get to analysis the result from your testing. If you should test more, or if you're good enough, or you want reports, and you can also collaborate with other team members in a different way. I will show you a bit about that a bit later on. Okay, so execution on target, you mentioned. Yeah, you normally develop your unit test for your software and test on your host, and then you have some type of connection to the target. It could be whatever you would like to, USB, JTAG, for example, or something else. And you run that test executable that you have created on your target. And depending on what type of output you have from that, you could either have just a blink if it passed or failed, but normally you have some limited amount of memory. So you do some type of saving that result on the memory, and then you demultiplex it on your host to get out all of the same statistics analysis windows as you get on when running on the host. So actually, when you're doing it on target, you won't notice the difference between running on host or on target. It's the same view you have. Okay, so that was a little bit short about the overview, how it works, and the look of feel of what you should do. But let me just show you. Oh, hold on. Let me just show you a bit of the tool. Just wait. Let's see if I can get the screen up and running again. It wasn't my intention to put it down. Let's see. I hope everyone can see the tool right now. So in here, I have, this is Eclipse. And as you can see here, I have 3 projects in the left side here. I can just make this a bit smaller. And let's see, I have this reverse string here. So if I just double click this, you can see how this looks. Let's make it bigger. It's a simple function, takes a string of characters and return it in the reverse order. So that's nice and simple. Okay, but what if I would like to have a test created for that? I just push a button, more or less. Let's go over to the view that's called Test Explorer. Let's redo it again, sorry for that. And I have set up something called a server on this machine here. And I have created something called a container. I will show that a bit later on. But let's finish that. And now I get a dialog that asks me if I want to have test case per function or auto test. And I can select what type of code coverage level I would like to have. So let me just select something and I click next. And here you can see the external calls from my software under test that's called by the tool. And I can select how to control them. I'm fine with having the wrappers. I will talk a little bit about that later on. Let's see. Okay, so now I have something here in the left-hand side on the Test Explorer view. The test cases, I have the coverage rule set. I have something called a test reverse string. And if I go look into this test case here, and if we, for example, we can open this, hold on, we can open this up so you can show you the actual test script. Let me try to put this side by side if I can.
Does it use any particular scripting language or?
No, that's exactly what I'm going to show. It's not having any special scripting language. It's using the same type of source that you have in the software under test. So if you're have some software under test or sources in C, you get the test script in C. And of course, you're using the libraries that you get from the tool to check. So here you have the actual test script written in text instead of this graphical dialogue. So it's easy to see what's going on. For example, if I change this here to null, and we can make that a bit easier to see perhaps. There it is. Let's take this one also. And you can see it updates the text script and the other side opposite way around. And also if I update the text here, the actual test script, it will update my GUI also.
So that means I wouldn't be bound to use the GUI to create the test. I could actually modify an existing test script.
Yeah, you can use you can use a text editor, what we like to do to actually edit the test scripts. But the GUI helps you to create the test harness quick and easy. But you can use any text editor you would like to. Okay, so now I have a test script and a coverage rule set. So let's just try to run it, see what happens. You can see here is a console output in the bottom here. It says what I'm doing more or less. And if I put it up correctly, it should put out some simple output here. And we can already see in the console output while it's working here that and it's uploading the test to the server I talked about. Hold on, just so you can see a small output of how the test went, if it went good or bad. And in the left-hand side here at the Test Explorer, you can directly see how the progress is going. You can already see here that I haven't fulfilled the code coverage level I just picked. I didn't know what I picked, I just picked one. And the test case I have here, that's actually fulfilled. I put in null, I get null in return. So that's great.
I noticed you use GCC here.
Yes.
Could I use any compiler?
Yes, you can do.
Right.
You can
Kyle or ARM or
Kyle or ARM or
whatever
you would like to, more or less. You just need to configure the tool to get it working with your tool chain in the proper way. Yeah. Okay, so that's great. Let's have a quick look what we have done here. We have done a test case, and just run the first test case and check the code coverage level. So this was quickly about the interface, how it looks and feels the tool. So what we talked about was the test framework. It's automatically generated. It uses the same type of C or C++, depending on the source file you're doing the test for. Okay, so next things up. What do you need to do great unit tests? Okay.
Well, I was hoping you would answer that question.
Yeah, of course. You need some good requirements to be able to know what to actually test. And of course, if you have something like that, you first implement the header files and the source files, and then you want to actually test that you have fulfilled the requirements you have on that unit under test. And Cantata, you can do that. I will show you quickly, just this view actually. And you can use it and integrate it with a lot of different requirement tools like Polarion, IBM Doors, or what you are using today. So I have a very simple requirements list here, done in Excel. It could be text also, but I've done it in Excel. I'm going to use this one and match the tests that I created to the requirements I have here. So let's go back to the tool. I can find it there, and let's. Okay, I already have done this once just to try out, but just to show you, I import the requirements I have, the low-level requirements. Click OK. It's imported completely. Then I can select if I want to have all of these requirements and connect them to the different unit tests I have. I will. It's a small list, so yeah.
So when you do that linking between the requirement and the test case, you actually get full traceability.
Yes, exactly. That's the point. Thank you, Michael. You get to know what you have done and how you have done it, and you can export it back to the tool you have, in my case, Excel. So let's see, the first requirement, it was 100% code coverage, entry statement, calls, and decisions. I don't think I selected that, but let's have a look at that later on. And the next requirement was null, and then null should report the return. I fulfilled that one, I know that. And the last one is, when it's not null, let's put in a string of characters. Okay, so this one here is connected to this one, and that's finished. This one here should be this one, but I don't think I have put in the correct code coverage level. So let's try to change that. I should have, what did it say? It should 100% calls, decisions, something like that, I think. Okay. So
what's actually happening now with your test script?
I'm changing the level of code coverage. It's checking. Before it's just checking the entry in basic. So when I rerun this here, you will see that there will be a lot more code coverage rule sets set up here. And I need to fulfill them to achieve my requirements in this case. And you can set up requirements, or the code coverage here as you would like to. There is different setups. There are presets, coverage rule sets here already. So you can see here in the list, there is like EN or ISO 26262 or DO 178B. It's up to you to decide more or less.
Okay, so I could use any of those and I could accommodate my own.
Yeah, exactly. You can create your own standards also for your company. It's up to you. Okay, so the code coverage level has changed here. As you can see, I don't achieve the coverage level I would like to, and I still have one requirement left to fulfill. So let's start with trying to achieve the next requirement there, the number 2. So I just copy the first test case. I go into that, and instead of null, I want to have something like this. Just put in a text here as an input to my reverse string function, and I know it should be like this at least in return. So let's try that out to see what happens. And let's just rerun the test cases to see how it goes and how much coverage level I get by adding that extra test case. So I haven't actually done very much with writing or anything like that yet, but I would like to check if I can achieve the coverage level that I was preset to have. And as you can see here already in the left-hand side, I have fulfilled the requirements of coverage rule sets with both the test cases I have here. I have the second one here. Oops. I think I accidentally clicked away my trace requirements. Let's put it up again. Sorry for that. Or I moved it. I moved it. Sorry for that. That's the thing with live. Okay, so back here again. Here I have the overall test, and here I have each test case. So I want to connect the last one to the last requirements that I have. So let's do that. So now I have done all of the test cases here. Okay, so let's continue with the agenda I had. That was the requirements and trace. And if we continue, what do you need to do? Let's say, Michael, you have a software test that's quite complicated, and you have some hardware, let's say some CAN routine or something else that you would like to handle. That's not very easy, is it?
No, because most of the tests we usually do are like positive testing.
Yeah.
We test that the system works as we expect it to do, but we don't usually test for unexpected things.
That's true. That's true.
So what I would like to know is if I'm testing, like you're saying, like a protocol or something,
yeah.
What happens if things doesn't work as I expect them to do?
Exactly.
And how can I simulate those situations easily? Because from the external, it's almost impossible to system test, black box test the system and get it to do the things that only happens once every millennium.
Yeah, true, correctly. And with Cantata, you can do that easily. Let's say you have something like this. You have a function A here. You want to do a test for that one. And as you say, you want to interpret it. You want to see what's happening. Often you have a lot of dependencies. So let's go over that first. For example, perhaps you have a function B that you depend on. You don't have it or it's not developed yet. You can simulate that with this tool. And you want to use function C as it is. You don't want to change anything. That's also fine. But you also in the build have function D, and you want to change the behavior of that function. Now we get into the point that you were talking about. We want to change the behavior of something to see how our software in a test reacts. And of course, there could be some global data you want to set before the test to set up the preconditions correctly before starting the test. And all this is possible to do with this tool. let's see.
What you meant there was that when you're testing function A,
yeah,
you can in one test case have function D behave in a normal way, and in another test case you can have function D work in a different way.
Exactly. And in the tools tool, it's called call interface control. So you decide how that call should behave. And I will show a bit about it. Let's start with a simulation first that I showed. If you don't have a function or you're going to develop that one, you can do a simulation, a stub, isolate, whatever you call it. And it's replacing the actual called object. So let's start with that first. And that's nothing special. You can check the parameters to it when it's called in the call order and check or choose the return parameters from it also. But now we're going to the interesting part, the wrappers, a way to controlling the function in the way that you want to. Okay, so you have your software and a test here and the called object. And with this tool, you can create something called a wrapper. The wrapper is, you can check the parameters to it. You can check what order or how many times it's been called, and you can modify the parameters to that call object and set other preconditions like global variables or something else to get it to behave as you want to. Or if you want to check the parameters that's from that call object, you can also modify those parameters that comes from that, and that's where it comes into handy. For example, with that CAN protocol, where you want to get a bit error or the message is not correctly set up or something, you can check or you can just edit that directly to the software under test.
You mean I can simulate an erroneous behavior in the protocol, for instance?
Exactly, and see how your software is working. And of course, you can do similar to the isolate and replace it completely as it would be a simulation instead. Okay, so let's go back to the tool. How do we do this? I said before that it was wrappers that we're going to use. But let's create a wrapper that actually doesn't do anything useful here, but just to show you how it works. So let's take a copy of the last test I did. Here we have it. And you can see here, it's a copy test. And if I just close this one down to get some more space here, let's make this a bit larger here so you can see what's happening. This is what I was talking about, call interface control. Here you can decide what that call how it should behave. You can change the behavior of it. So let's take the first one here. You can see by default, it's using something called a default call interface. And that means it doesn't change the behavior of the call that you're doing. It's just the way it would be as you're calling it normally. But we want to change the behavior for it. We want to alter behavior from it. So let's just, nothing useful at all in this here, but just to show you how it works. So I have something called wrong length. I just created. It's a new instance of that string length call I'm doing from my software and test. So I have the wrong length here, and I want to change the behavior for that. Here I can select the default. This is the instance editor where I can change the behavior, and here I have the wrong length. Sorry, bad name perhaps, and just adding something to the return value, just to have something to show. Okay, so if we look here, I have my test reverse string 2 that is using the string length with my instance wrong length, and it's returning something that it shouldn't do. And if we go back to the test case I copied, you can see here it's using the default instance of that string length. Okay, so let's just try to run this again and see what the outcome will be. And if you have any questions, we can take them afterwards. We'll have a short session after the presentation here. And you can either write in the chat box that should be available, or we can have a quick talk. But let me just finish up the presentation here. Okay, so it's finished, and we can see here, these two are the same type of test. although I'm using another instance of my string length. I'm using something called wrong length. And as you can see here, the outcome from that is the strange behavior. Actually, I don't know what it's going to put out. So that was very quickly about how the wrapper is working. Okay, so let's move on. That was about control intercept calls. And the next thing I was going to talk about is the team reporting and continuous integration. The team reporting is add-on. Let me just show you. There's a good slide here, I think. It's a way of collaborating between different teams. Perhaps you have some teams spread out in the world and you want to see the progress of the test cases that your teams are using. And then it's possible to do that by setting up a small server running somewhere, and then you get the same look and feel as you have in the tool. You actually can choose what to upload and not upload. Let me see if I can just show you. Hold on. I can just have it. See if mine is up and running. Let's see. Yeah. So this is the progress of today. You can see here. I have my reverse string here, and this is the times here. Hopefully you can see my screen. Yeah, good. And let's go in and, for example, have a look here. If we go into this and just take one of those, and we get the Coverage Explorer. Let's see if this works here. Okay, let's put it up in full screen. Sorry for that. And you can see here, you get the same look and feel as you would have in the tool itself. And you can configure this in the way that you want to, more or less. Okay.
So this is the way to measure progress in a large project, basically, because measuring how much you have tested and how many tests have passed and how good the test scripts cover your software is really a good way to measure how far has your project progressed.
Yeah, and you're avoiding replicating tests, etc. And you can get other information or data out from that if you would like to have that for another tool. For example, you have a REST API, you can get data out from that. And the other thing was the continuous integration. I have, let's see, I have a server here, it's old, but that I'm running Jenkins on. So let me just show you that. It's an older version of Cantata, but it doesn't really matter. It's the same thing here. Oops, I should go into that project. It's that I have some different projects up and running there. Okay, so here we have the Jenkins running a reverse string, the same example I was showing you. And each time it has run, you get the Cantata test report added to that build, and I have actually done an extra check with the Lauterbach. So I have two reports here in the same run here. And you can check inside of this report here that you have the how the look of it. It's quite old actually. It's been some time since I run it, and you can get the report out from here. And you can get reports that's ready for certification if you need that. And here's the same type of server running on this machine here, just to show you how it looks and how it works. Okay, so let's skip that. And besides that, my plan is to show you a bit about the new functionality that's been released with Cantata version 9. It's been out almost a year now, the version 9, but it has some good features actually. You have added, it's added test-driven development, and that means that you can create a test harness from the header files you have. If you have the prototypes, you can create that. You have something called auto test, and there is some code coverage enhancements. and there's an undo redo button. A small thing, but it's a big improvement. So with the test-driven development, you can generate test script from the headers. I'm not going to show much about that. The auto test, I haven't talked about auto test.
Now, what's the auto test?
Well, the auto test is actually a way of generating or exercising the source code you have in a project. So let me show you. If I just close this one down here and open up another one, this is the same type of project as the one I just showed you. But there isn't any test cases yet. Nothing has been done so far. So the auto test, you can exercise the source you have in all possible, what's the correct term? Paths. Thank you. That's available. And that is done by just clicking one button. I don't want to upload this to the server. And let's just finish. And you will see, I just clicked one button, accept the dialog that was coming up there. And you will see that it will generate a number of test cases by itself, trying to exercise the source as much as possible with a preset coverage rule set that I have set up in the tool itself. So it's not for a project, it's actually a tool setup that I have, and I can see it's quite low. It's just 100% statement, enter pointer statement. But anyway, to show you how it works and what's the use for it, you can see it's generated almost the same type of test cases that I had in my other project here. And it tries to fulfill the coverage rule set that I have preset in my tool. Okay, so what should we use this for?
Well, this is kind of cheating because you ask the tool to generate test cases for you that will always pass.
Yeah, exactly.
So
that's
and you can let the tool do that and let the tool actually generate the test cases that gives you 100% coverage, for instance. So, but it's kind of cheating because it only proves that the code does what it does.
Exactly.
But I know that there are some cases where it's very, very useful. And most of my customers, they don't start unit testing from day one.
No,
they have a lot of legacy code.
Exactly.
And that legacy code, usually, if it's been in the field and it's been proven in use, it doesn't pay to manually create all the test cases for that, because you know that most of the functionality is there. Occasionally you go in and do some modifications and add-ons in that code. So what you want to do is you want to catch when you have done modifications that destroy the old code in some way. And so what you do is you let Cantata generate for your baseline a set of test cases that will always pass. And you use that in regression tests going forward. So when you add code, you continuously check that the old test cases are still working, that you haven't broken anything.
Correct.
And that saves you, I don't know, enormous lot of work.
Yeah, it is. It does. And there's actually one other example. The new feature here with auto test. Auto test has been with Cantata for a long time, but it's new for C++. And this was a C product here. So let me just show you. This was a quick view of the auto test with a C project, but let's open this product instead. I have a C++ project here. It doesn't contain any test cases. Here's it's a stack, a simple stack source file to push and pop and check if it's empty. So nothing special, but I don't have any tests and I want to create tests for it. I do the same thing here. I click the one auto test button. Still, I don't want to have this. You can change the settings of this. If you don't want it to be uploaded to server, you can change it so you don't get this dialog appearing every time. Oh, sorry, I pushed cancel. Let's disable that. Let's finish. And we'll see what happens here. Now to try to generate a number of test cases for this stack source file, C++. And it will soon finish up here. Hold on, and just compiling and generating test, building it, running it, getting the result, generating the test report, and a number of warnings I can see. So let's see how it goes. And soon we'll be finished. Hopefully.
How many test cases will it need? Do you have a feeling for that?
Yeah, almost 10. You can see it here. We'll soon be finished. So, okay. I can see now I've done one mistake before this. You can see everything here is passed, and that's great, as it should. But let's say if you go into the source file, let's open that one up. And I have pre-made an error here. So it won't work. And let's just rerun this test again. And it will fail, of course, because, yeah, you will see soon. And that's one way of checking how the source is changing. If you still achieve, as you can see, in this case, it was just the code coverage level that wasn't achieved anymore. So if we look in the, let's see here if I can get the coverage viewer up here. Oops, I need to. Why? Sorry for that. Okay, sorry for that. My intention was to put up the coverage view here, but I don't seem to get it up and running here for some reason. Oh, anyway, yeah. So you get the coverage rule was broken here by changing the source code here. So you can use it for that also, to see that you also fulfill the coverage level. Okay, something else about the new functionality besides the auto test for C++. There is the possibility to have build variant coverage. And build variant coverage could be, let's say you have different targets, for example, that you have your compiler flags to set up what type of target you have. And you still want to be able to test when changing, for example, the target, all the different variants. That's also possible with the new version of Cantata. You can see here, this is an example here that we have an if-def alarm present. You can see it's covered all of them, although it's probably just one of them that's true, or it's just one of them that is true. I mean, the compiler flags. And you also have the new certified CPP getCov, and that means you can combine deferred coverage analysis. I know I'm deep into the technical stuff here, but when you do deferred analysis, you get a number of reports. But with the CPP getCov utility, you can now use those to in a certification.
Do you aggregate the results? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So let's continue. The new functionality, besides that, is also you have an undo and redo button to undo and redo the edits within the Cantata views. For example, the test scripts, etc. Just checking the time here. Okay, good. I think that was the main parts of the tools that I was going to show and the new functionalities. To just summarize up what we've done, I've talked about how to generate tests or test executable and how you run it on target or host, and how to auto-generate those test scripts with the tool easily and quickly. As you've seen, in the first example, I did 3 test cases together with the code coverage level by just clicking and copying very quickly. Showed you a bit about the wrappers, how you can use them, and also a little bit about the requirements, how you can import them into the tool, get trace between the requirements and the test cases you have done, and then you can export them back to the tool that you're using, a requirements tool, to get the management to see what the progress is going on. And you have reports. I haven't talked or showed much of them, but you can get them in HTML or text, and it's ready for certification. I've showed you the Jenkins server that I have up and running and how that interacts with the tool and generates reports. And almost everything you do in the tool, you can do through a command line. That means that you can build and generate test results, etc., from a command line. And that's really useful when using different other ways of doing continuous integration, like containers or Jenkins, or whatever type of setup you have, more or less. And we just show you a little bit about the new functionalities that's in the version 9 of Cantata. And Michael.
There is more to it that we haven't had time to cover today. Excuse me. There is a new feature integrated with Cantata called the Test Architect. And that's a tool to understand your software architecture and to be able to analyze the architecture and find problems in the architecture, both as a one-shot thing or as in a continuous integration phase, to make sure that you haven't broken the intended architecture. So look out for that webinar. We haven't set a date for it yet, but it will be coming up in May time.
Cool. I'm looking forward to it. Okay, so do you have any questions? I haven't seen anything in the chat window, so I'm a bit afraid it doesn't work. Has everybody seen it?
And of course, as it says here, if you'd like to try Cantata, we will help you evaluate and get it up and running in your environment.
Yeah, and we can do educations on site, and there is a good tutorial with the tool that you could use also. There's a number of different guided tutorials that you will step through the process with the tool, getting to get the basic up to really advanced way of doing unit testing. And we have recorded this session, so we will send it out, a link to that, together with the presentation, right?
Yeah, you will get that, maybe not today, but maybe on Monday.
Yep.
Okay, just come back with questions if you have. Email us at sales or support@knowhow.se.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening in today. Oh, sorry, did we?
No, there isn't any other questions right now. I haven't covered all of the functionality there is of the tool, but there is a lot of other functionalities, like you can generate test scripts from table-driven tests. There is code change analysis, there is code injection. There's a lot of functionality that I haven't covered. This is just the basic things.
Yeah, and we are of course willing to set up individual webinars. Today it's no good thing to visit each other, but we are happy to set up individual webinars and go through deeper details and things that relate to your specific environments. Okay, everyone. Thank you very much for listening in, and take care out there. I wish you a nice and wonderful weekend.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you for listening in. Bye-bye.
Bye now.